Well, welcome everyone. This is DES 104, and we are about to talk about week 3. And I just wanted to find out, how did week 2 go? How did you guys feel week 2 went? Let's pull up that chat bar, shall we? It went well. That's good. Gotta say, I was very impressed with all of the projects that got turned in. I thought you guys did a great job. Did you guys have fun with it? Christine, you enjoyed it? Good. Well, I'll go ahead and start the video here so that we can all say hello, introduce ourselves. It's good to have you ladies joining us today, and we're going to be starting our week 3 slides and lecture. I'm going to do most of today's lecture in Photoshop, so we're going to do lots of demos, lots of going over the tools. There's a specific selection and mask tools that we're going to learn how to use, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to incorporate that in your assignment. We're going to go over the assignment in a lot of depth. I'm going to show you 3 different versions of how to do this assignment, starting from simple, intermediate to advanced, if you will, just a little bit more challenging. But again, just like last week's assignment, this is going to be totally up to you as far as how complicated you want to make it or how simple you want to use it. But I'm going to show you different tools that you can use, so you can choose, and that's half the fun, or just experiment and just see what you can come up with. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and we're going to jump right into our slides. Are there any questions from week 2? I want to open this up. Anyone have questions? Anything you're wondering how to do? I'll give you just a minute to respond. All right. Well, if not, we're going to go ahead and jump right in, go full speed ahead. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my slides. Can you guys see this up here? Everything coming in loud and clear? All right, just a little reminder, we're going to talk about what our discussion is this week. We're going to be talking about rasters in artwork, designers who use rasters. And so our discussion 3, we've already kicked it off as of yesterday. And what you're supposed to do is basically Photoshop can be used as video editing software. So I don't know if you knew that or not, but it does have video editing capability. And so what your job is going to be for discussion 3 is just kind of doing some research. Conduct some research on the internet, Google it, and kind of define your own list of pros and cons. What appeals to you about this video editing capabilities? What are the cons? What are your limits on the video editing features of Photoshop? So get familiar with it. I want you to share your list with the class and discuss your own thoughts on how you might use Photoshop as a video editor. So you're going to be doing a little bit of research. Most of it's going to be research. You will be graded on your initial post. Make sure you get that in by Wednesday so you don't get docked any points. And then also, your initial post does need to be a minimum of 150 words. I know that I didn't count that last week because you were doing the live demo, so I figured that was good enough. But this time, we really need to make sure that we hit that minimum word count, okay? And then make sure you post a good substantial post to at least 2 peers. So reply to at least 2 peers posts. Needs to be about 50 words or more. So make sure you hit that word count on that as well. Stay active in the discussion. This is how I take attendance for the class, and discussions unfortunately can't be made up or submitted late. So if you miss it, you miss it, and it's 60 points. So it's a easy 60 points if you participate, and it can definitely hurt your grade because you're subtracting that 60 points from your overall grades if you don't participate. So just try to make sure you stay active. If you have questions, feel free to ask me. I'll be posting as well, and in fact, I've already got some posts in there. So I'd love to see what you come up with. I want to see your own list. I want to see what you come up with, and then also cite your sources as you pull them so that we can all keep it honest. All right. Any questions about discussion 3? pretty straightforward. I don't imagine there being any confusion there. It was a pretty simple assignment. I did want to give you a reminder. Make sure you use correct images for our assignment 3 this week. So how many of you looked at assignment 3? Do you know what we're getting into today? Okay, not yet? All right, I'll give you a little introduction. Let's see. All right, so here's assignment 3 if you haven't already looked at it. We're going to be doing image composition, okay? We're going to be using selection tools, and you're going to be learning how to do that as well. There are at least 3 links under the assignment. The first one is a short 12-minute video on how to do the basic assignment. I'll be covering that in class. And then the other 2 are YouTube video links that will go into more information on how to do the selection tools. So you are encouraged to use free stock imagery. There's a website under the assignment 3 that you can just click and make sure that you're selecting the free stock imagery, but make sure you download the highest version of that photo. Download the large high-res files and not the thumbnails or the preview images, and you won't be allowed to pull from Google on this assignment. You will need to pull from this website. So you're going to need a photo of an animal of some kind, a photo of a hat, a crown, or some kind of a headpiece, and then you're going to need a photo of a prop. So for example, it could be a briefcase or a drinking glass, a pencil, just something that the animal can interact with. And then you're going to want a background. Okay, so there are going to be 4 separate images that you're going to be working with, and you're going to compile that into one. And composite those 4 images together in a clever way. I want to see some creativity here, using the selections and the masking techniques that we're going to be demonstrating in class, and that you saw demonstrated in those video links under the assignment 3. If you don't have time to watch this 2-hour lecture from home, or even stick it out for 2 hours, I definitely recommend watching that short 12-minute segment on how to do this assignment. So be sure to adjust layers and clipping masks to make the lighting and the color consistent, and we'll be talking about that as well. All right. Oh, and for example, so just some more clarity, if you could have an animal wearing a hat and carrying a briefcase in its mouth, or maybe a puppy wearing a tiara holding a magic wand. It doesn't really matter what it is or how silly it is. I just want you to be clever, and I want you, most importantly, to have fun with this assignment. So just kind of get those creative juices flowing and kind of think about how you can make this interesting and fun for you. There's a question, can we use our pets if we have them as photo of an animal? Absolutely. Well, I will say it does need to be a high-res image, so if you took it with a high-resolution camera and not a phone, then yes, you can. It will be pretty apparent if you can see pixels, if it's pixelated, but it does need to be a high-resolution photo. So if you took it from a professional camera or a high-resolution camera, that's fine. It's maybe a minimum of 11, 12 pixels. That would be okay. But if it was just on the phone, that would not be acceptable. It would be too low res. It's a good question. I'd love to see personal photos of your animals and your pets. That would be fun. Just make sure that the photo was taken with a proper camera first. Does that help? Okay, good. Great question. Let's see. Oh, there's also a video on how to select and download high-res images from the website. So I'll if we have time, I'll go and demo that for you real quick. But if we don't if we don't have time for that, just go to this at the bottom of the assignment. There's a link that shows you exactly step-by-step how to download those images. All right, so let's go back here. So again, just make sure you use the correct images for your assignment this week and watch this video, okay? This video is a shorter version of what we're gonna go over today, and it covers all the steps that you'll need. So again, if you're short on time or if you're running late this week with your assignment, this is a good way to catch up. And if you need any help on images, you can just click on this, or you can go to this supportgoogle.com Q&A, and they can answer some questions about the high resolution photos. But again, we won't need to be going to Google to pull any images. You'll probably be graded on whether or not you pulled them from that website. Whoops. Okay. All right, so we're gonna have a break time there of about 12 minutes. Watch this video here. This is on how to use a channel pull mask. We won't have time to go over this today, but it's a 12-minute video, and it can be a little complicated, so it might take some practice and getting used to, but it's a good video. You would use a channel pull mask if you have a light object on a white background that would be hard to cut out, or even a dark object on a light background. It's just an easier way to cut it out and keep it kind of clean edges. But again, this will be a video, this is about 12 minutes, so when we take our break, I want you to watch this video, and I'll give you the link when we go to break. If you've already seen this video, go ahead and use the time to get started on your assignment so that you can ask questions as we're going through things today, and that you can get a head start, so when we have our multi-session on Thursday, you can come in with it almost practically done. All right. Now, I emailed out everybody these links, but I don't know if you knew it, but there is a video for every assignment. So in addition to our 2-hour lecture recording, there's also shorter video segments that cover how to do the assignment step by step for week 1, week 2, and week 3. So here are the links, and I emailed them out, so you have these. Did you guys receive an email from me today? Did you get this? Okay, if you haven't, just check your spam folder, your junk mail. Sometimes it tends to go in there, but just want to make sure you got these. Please watch them and use them. They could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes, but it's a lot better than a 2-hour video session. So yeah, look again, Rachel, if you didn't get it, or check your spam folder. Sometimes it can go in there, but I did send it out today, and it looks like Christine received it, so that's great. And so those of you who are watching at home, check this out too, because we have our week 3 assignment video here as well. So you definitely want to see that, just get a different perspective. All right, so we talked about the assignment a little bit. Here's how we're going to be breaking down the rubric. I'm going to be grading you on mastering skills. These tools will take a lot of time to master and to practice, but I want to make sure that you didn't do a quick and dirty cut and paste job. This really needs to demonstrate that you understand how to use the tools and properly, and how to get an effective effect on your photos. And masking is clean and professional. You're going to be graded on whether or not you use license-free imagery of an animal, prop, hat, and background, and then whether or not you follow directions on how to save it. Some of you saved your photo editing images in a zip file this last week, and all I needed was a JPEG. So again, all I need is a JPEG, and you're good to go. So save yourself the extra steps of having to zip something. You don't need to do that for this assignment. It is worth quite a bit of points, so you definitely want to make sure you get that in. Okay, so we're going to come back to this. Well, actually, let's do the assessment quiz. I have a few questions to ask you. Assessment 3 this week is a quiz, and I was going to go over a few of those questions with you if you guys don't mind. Is that something that you'd want to see, or have you guys already taken it? Okay, cool. So if you don't mind, we'll take a few minutes and go over the assessment together. We can kind of ask each other the questions. I think it's only about 10 questions, so it's a pretty short quiz, but it is worth 50 points. So maybe that'll be an easy 50 points. So let me stop the share here. We'll switch screens. We'll go into the assessment. Okay. Can you guys see my screen okay? Good. All right, so let's preview this and let's talk about the questions. So it looks like there's only 5 questions. So there you go, even shorter, even better. So in addition to your daily checkpoints, you're gonna have this assessment 3, and this is taking place of an assignment. So you still have assignment 3, but unlike last week, you don't have an extra design project to do. So that's the good news. Question 1 asks, which key do you hold to retain height to width proportions when resizing an object? And we'll go over these today, but just out of curiosity, do you guys remember me mentioning this last week? Yeah, absolutely. It's shift. Good job. When you're resizing an object or a picture or anything in Photoshop, you'll hold down the shift button as you click and drag the anchor points. And this will constrain the proportions and allow you to shrink something down or expand something to be larger, but it doesn't skew or distort or squish or squeeze the image or the object. So it just kind of constrains those proportions, which is really handy and really nice. All right, question 2. I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Question 2 asks, which tool creates selections that snap to the edge of an object? We'll be going over these tools later today, but I just wanted to see if you guys take a guess. So, yep, exactly. Magnetic lasso. That would be kind of my first guess too, just based off of the name alone. So when you use the magnetic lasso tool, what it does is it traces an object, but it's kind of like just like a magnet would snap into place. It snaps to the edge of an object, and so it makes for a cleaner cut out when you're trying to make a selection. So yeah, it would be magnetic lasso. Okay, question 3. Which tool lets you paint to select using a resizable brush? This one's a hard question if you haven't used these tools before, but it's the quick selection tool, okay? And I'll show you how to do that later today. And then what are the keyboard shortcuts for increasing and decreasing brush size? Again, we'll demo this, but it's the brackets. So you'd use the closed brackets and open brackets to decrease or increase your brush size. And then just out of curiosity, what tool will set the foreground color to any color in the document just by clicking on the color you want? What do you think? With your experience in Photoshop, what do you think which tool would do this? Very close, very close. It's the eyedropper tool. And the eyedropper tool is what's neat about that is you can grab any color from an image that you want, any shade of color, by using the eyedropper tool, and it will automatically put it in the foreground of your color in your document. It's kind of neat. All right, so let's see how we did. All right, so full points. So just so you know, these are the Q&As for assessment 3. And just so we'll just kind of go through them. If there's any questions, just let me know. But this was just kind of a quick little reward for those who are attending and watching. So good luck on this assessment. Hopefully everybody gets 50 points across the board. Are there any questions about this before we move on? This might also be something good to do during our 12-minute break. You can go and take the quiz real quick. But let's talk about these quick selection and lasso tools. These are some things that we're going to need to go over. So I'll go ahead and stop the share. And we kind of reviewed the assessment a little bit, so we know these ones. Oh, okay, so I just had a little thought. So I've had a lot of students say, oh, Photoshop is so hard, this class is really so difficult, and I thought it would be funny to kind of make light of it. If you think Photoshop is hard, it could be worse. I mean, you could be trying medical school or maybe quantum physics. This is totally over my head. This is what's hard. So just letting you know, don't get in your own head about Photoshop being hard, because it just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of work. And once you apply it and implement it, you'll be fine. And so again, like there could be a whole other slew of subjects that you could be taking that that are a lot harder than Photoshop. And what's fun about Photoshop is, one, it's fun, and you can get creative. If you have any artistic bone in your body, this is a great way to express yourself. Using Photoshop is just it's just really cool. Oh, I'm so glad to hear this is one of your favorite classes. Oh, and you went to college as a math major? Oh dear. See, math is not my strong suit, so I gladly embraced graphic design. I was like, oh, I can do this. I can do art. I can do digital art. This is way easier than math. Well, you've got both sides of the brain, the left and the right side working, huh, don't you? Calculus killed you and that's why you switched. I don't blame you. I don't think I would ever have survived any math classes in college. I think I took a few and I barely passed those math classes. Oh dear. So again, yeah, maybe I could add math to this list, quantum physics and math, huh? That's funny. All right, so the 4 selection techniques, let's talk about these. Do you have Photoshop up? If not, go ahead and launch it. We're going to talk about these really quick. And I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to pull up my Photoshop and kind of do some demos, go over some tools with you. Get my screens up. I'll give you guys a minute to get Photoshop pulled up as well. Just give me a little smiley face or an okay, good to go when you have it up and running. And I'm just gonna shrink down everything I've got open right now. Now there is no specific size for your assignment this week. The dimensions, it's kind of left up to you. What do you want to do? I would maybe stick with 8.5 by 11. That's always a good one, or 5 by 7. That's always a good size to stick with. All right, I got smiley faces, so we're good to go. So let's start on, let's look at this demo. You'll see this is kind of familiar when you watch the assignment demo. We're going to do something very similar. So I'm going to demonstrate how to do a few of the tools that are very important, I think are very important. Today we're going to learn about some of the most important tools that will allow you to use image compositing with non-destructive results. What does it mean when we say non-destructive? I mentioned this last week too when we did some non-destructive techniques on those photo imaging or photo editing. What do you think it means when I say non-destructive? Yeah, it won't harm the original image, exactly. And that's super important. Selections and masks, these are the tools we're going to be learning. These are the tools that are going to be able to kind of enable you to do image compositing that allow you, and what that is it just allows you to combine multiple images in one photo and kind of put them together so it looks like one composition, one piece. And what's important about non-destructive techniques is that you can always go back to that original photo that was unharmed, absolutely. So that is why we try to teach these. And the destructive techniques, there are destructive techniques like using the eraser tool and actually cutting things out and pasting and then erasing on that will never preserve your original image. And that's more of like an amateurish move. And I'm teaching you what the professionals use. So those are non-destructive results. And so without further ado, we're going to talk about the first technique. So let's go over the main types of selections. This first image I'm going to use is this squirrel here. And so I'm going to pull in the original photo for you so you can see it. We're going to pull it in here. All right, isn't he cute? I pulled this off of that website that the link is on the under assignment 3, so you should be able to find this one if you want to see it. But super cute little squirrel, and we're asked to use an animal for this assignment. So here's my animal, and the squirrel. So you'll notice he has kind of a fuzzy, irregular shape to him. And this makes him the perfect candidate for what we call the quick mask tool. All right, and the quick mask tool can be found by clicking S on your keyboard, or I'm sorry, let's see. Yeah, it's S on your keyboard, or what you can do is go to your brush mode. So your paintbrush, and what this allows you to do, basically the quick mask tool, it's a tool that allows you to make a selection by using the brush tool. So you want to make sure you have your paintbrush tool on. And here I've selected my paintbrush tool. So what I want you to do is go find a picture. You can use the photo of your dog if you have it on your computer, or you can go to that website real quick and just pull a picture of an animal. It doesn't matter what it is. So I'll give you a minute to do that, because I really want to step you through this, because this is a demo that I think you'll learn a lot more if you work alongside me. So go grab an animal, give me a smiley face when you have something, okay? And as you're doing that, I'll talk a little bit more about this. So you're going to select your brush tool, and this will, and then we'll hit Q on our keyboard. And what this does is it activates our layer. What it means is it's now in quick mask tool mode. But what this will allow you to do, it's a tool that allows you to make a selection by using the brush tool. And I like this tool because it's more visual. It shows you where you're outlining. And you just want to make sure that your brush tool's on and that the black is in your foreground. So right now I have white on my foreground. I just want to click that little arrow and that will reverse it. So now black is my foreground and white is my background. This is a key component. This is very important. This will make or break whether or not it turns out, okay? And then I'll just wait until I get those smiley faces. Let me know when you have the picture pulled up. And if you're watching this from home, this would be a good opportunity to pull some kind of a picture of an animal. Got to set up an account? No problem. That's okay. It should just be easy. You just put in your email address and hit OK. And while you're doing that, I'll step you through how to do that. It might be a good opportunity to take advantage of this time. So while you're setting up your account, I will go to the assignment. Or I'm sorry, the link, and I'll show you real quick. So let me see if we can stop the share. I'll do a quick little demo on how to do that. All right, so here's our website. Free images, okay? And you will have to go set up an account, just enter your email and your name. But if you enter in, what are you looking for? If you just, I want a bunny, click on bunny. And then at the top here, it has all images, free images, or related images from iStock. Click on the free images, because obviously we don't want to have to pay for these pictures. Now be careful, because it's just kind of like ads on a social media website. These top thumbnail, 2 rows of thumbnails are pictures you'll have to pay for. But if you look here where it says free bunny photos, this is the section that you will select from. So, oh, they're so darling. They're so cute. So just pick a picture of an animal, preferably with some kind of a background so that you can see the actual cutout. If it has a white background, it will be a little tricky. So just for time's sake. Anyways, you can sift through this. Again, just make sure you click, when you find the picture of the bunny that you want, you'll click it. And then down here on this green button, it will say download. You'll click that, and you want the full version, the large version, okay? This is gonna help you have a really high resolution effect. So you'll click download, and wherever it saves it to your computer, it's now on your computer, and you'll pull that into Photoshop. I was asked to demonstrate how you pull pictures into Photoshop. So I'll show you that real quick. We'll close out of this while you're getting your images. You can pull, if you're on a Mac, you can simply just drag and drop the photo right into your Photoshop. There's a Photoshop icon at the bottom of your Mac usually, or on the left side. But you'll just drop that into the Photoshop icon and it will pull it in, or you can go to File, Open, and then just find where it was saved or downloaded to your computer, and then you'll select that file and hit OK. Right now mine's thinking. So find the squirrel, or in my case it was a squirrel, and hit Open, and it opens it right up. Okay, any questions about that? How to get your photo downloaded, where to find it, how to pull in your picture in Photoshop? Are we ready to move forward? Oh, and once you enter your email information, you'll just have to activate the account. They'll send you an email and you just click on the link in the email and it will say, oh, your account's activated now. So it's just a little step. Okay, so we're good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward. So as you find that cute picture of that fuzzy animal, you'll notice that in my picture I have some fuzzy edges. The tail is fuzzy, and then his gray on gray background, that's going to kind of make it tricky to pull from this photo. But what I'm going to show you is just a quick step. So to use the quick mask tool, you're going to make sure you select your paintbrush. So there's a few steps that you got to do. Make sure your paintbrush is selected, and then make sure your foreground is set to black. You see that? The black squares in the front. If it's not, just click this arrow here. This will reverse it. Perfect. So black is in front, paintbrush is selected, and then you're going to hit Q on your keyboard. How will you know that you're in quick mask mode? By looking at your layer. You see that that layer turned red as soon as I hit Q? You see that? So what that does is it activates my quick mask tool. So if you don't see it turn red, then you're not in the quick mask tool, and you'll know really quickly. You also want to make sure your opacity is at 100%, flow is at 100, and that the mode is set to normal. This is your blending mode. You can find your blending modes in different places. One is at the top of the screen here. It's got the drop-down menu. And then your other, where you'll also find it, the other place you'll find it is over here under your layers panel. It will give you those same options. Okay, but we just want everything set to normal and at 100%. All right, now we talked about brush sizes. So by using, you can use your drop-down menu here, or you can use your brackets, oops, to increase or decrease the brush size. So I want you to pay attention to this brush, this number here. You see how it says 25 right up here? I'm going to be using my closed brackets to increase it. You see how the numbers are increasing by 5? It's kind of tiny to see, but as you hit the closed brackets, it increases it. The open bracket decreases it. So it's kind of a neat little keyboard shortcut. I'm a visual person, so I like to kind of customize the size of my brush. So I'll be going in here with a soft edge. I want the hardness to be reduced to 0. And I'm going to increase this brush a good amount. You can kind of test it by holding it over your squirrel. That's a good size. 169 seems to work for my specific picture. So I'm going to click and just kind of color in, and you'll notice what's happening. It's coloring red, which is kind of cool. With black as your foreground tool, the opacity at 100%, and your blending mode on normal, we've got all those settings set correctly. I'm painting red, and that lets us know that this is a selection that's being created. It also lets us know we're specifically in the quick mask mode. So I'm coloring, I'm just getting to the edge of this little fuzzy squirrel. And notice my brush is a little bigger than his ear. I can just decrease the brush size and kind of go in. And it doesn't have to be perfect right away. I like to cover the edges, get his eye, as much of this little hand as I can get. I'm just going to go in and do the edges a little bit. Increase the brush size just slightly so I get a little bit more fuzzy edge. So I'm just going to color them in. So the idea is coloring the entire object in of what it is that you want to select. So again, painting this red lets us know that a selection is being made, and we're telling it where we want that selection to be made. I'm try to do his nails as best I can. I'm going to shrink down this brush size and kind of get in to the edges a little bit more. That little nail. I want that peanut. All right. So now that we've made our selection, now you may be noticing that the edge at the top is a little bit more soft than the brush that I'm using. So I can go in and adjust the softness of my brush by using this drop-down menu, and you can click on a fuzzy brush, or you can reduce the hardness to all the way to 0. Normally I spend a lot more time to kind of get this right, but for sake of time, and I don't want to bore you, as you're going along, if you want to make it semi-transparent, a semi-transparent selection, you can do that as well. You can go and adjust your opacity, and this helps contribute to your soft edge. So if you reduce the opacity a little bit and kind of try to get in a little bit more of that tail, what that does by reducing the opacity, it allows you to get a little bit more feathery edge, and we want to maintain that little fluff from this creature. And so that's what that does. Okay, and then you can bring it back to 100. This just, like I said, just contributes to the soft edge. So I can also use my smudge tool, which is found under your blur tool. Smudge tool is found kind of midway on the toolbar. It's got that finger with that sticking out. The smudge tool is handy because it can, what it does is it kind of flattens everything out. It kind of gets those edges a little bit more. All right, so now that the image is all colored in, you're going to hit Q on your keyboard to quit. And what it's going to do is going to outline that selection. Now I'm going to hit Shift Command I, and what that does is it inverts my selection. So now it makes the proper selection, and now I'm going to make my clipping mask. And that is right here at the bottom. There's a little icon right here. I'm going to click that, and you'll notice how the background just went away. Kind of cool, huh? It's kind of like a stencil that's being cut out, so to speak. So now you can kind of get a good assessment of whether or not you did a good job on the edges, and we can clean it up at this point. All right, so I want to make sure that everyone understands this concept. So have you guys gotten to this point where you can try to do a quick selection, a quick mask? Do you guys have a picture? Are you in quick mask mode? And are there any questions on how to get to this point? Okay, good. So it was successful. You got it. You have a little background around the edges. That's okay. We're going to clean up mine as well. How do you get to this point? Couldn't see. What point, Christine, did you not see? So once you have colored in the selection, okay. So once you have, hang on. Once you have colored in your object with your quick mask tool, you're going to hit Q on your keyboard, and then you're going to invert the selection. So you're going to hit Shift Command I. And now that inverts your selection, so it's going to make a little stencil cutout basically. When your object is selected, that's how you know that it's good to go. So once it's selected and you see that dotted line around it and everything looks good, you're going to go down here at the bottom of Photoshop, and you're going to click on Add Layer Mask. And what that does is, if you notice here to the right of your image in your layer, it has now created a little mask. This is a non-destructive technique because we're going to make all our changes on this mask, and not on the original photo. So you'll want to make sure that your photo itself is not selected. You want to make sure that mask is selected, okay? All right, so now if I wanted to go and clean up the edges a little bit before I start dragging it into things, I'm going to grab my paintbrush again with my mask selected, and I'm going to start coloring. With my foreground set to black, what I can do is start erasing things or tidying up the edges a little bit. Now, if I erase too much, like this ear, say I accidentally took this ear off, what I can do is set my foreground to white, and I can paint that ear back in. So if it's set to white, it will kind of restore what was erased, kind of paints back over it. If I set it to black, it will help me erase in a non-destructive way because it's erasing the mask and not the original photo. So I'm just going to kind of clean up the edges here a little bit. I don't want things to be too fuzzy. Still want to maintain detail. Kind of go in there and clean everything up. So this was it Rachel? So Rachel, this is the technique you would use. You would just use your paintbrush tool. Make sure the background is set on black. Make sure your layer mask is selected. And you would just go in and kind of paint over the parts that you want to clean up a little bit. All right, so that looks good to me. And I'm trying to give it some texture by kind of going in and out of it with my brush tool. All right, this little guy looks good to go. So that's how we use the quick mask tool. So now, so like I said, we're going to paint with black to erase and to get rid of the hard edges. And if you need to restore something, you'll paint with white. So just make sure that either or is in the foreground, whichever effect that you want to get. Are there any questions about this point? All right. So earlier I had created a new document. I'll go to File, New. And I'll set it to custom. I'm going to just do 8.5 by 11. Standard size. Again, there's no dimensions that were specific for this assignment, so it's kind of up to you. Resolution at 72 pixels, and then hit create. There's my background. And now what I'm going to do is grab my squirrel. With the layer mask selected, make sure the layer mask is the one that's selected. I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm going to click and drag him right into my document. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on. Got a lot of stuff open. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to grab him. I'm going to go to my untitled document, and I'm going to put him in there. I'm just going to kind of click and drag him over into this new file. All right, so as I paste him in, he's quite large, okay? So I'm just going to zoom out. Command minus will help you zoom out. Command plus helps you zoom in. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, or Scale, or you can do Free Transform. You'll just have to hold down the Shift button to constrain those proportions as you resize your image. I'll throw this little guy in. All right, and just hit save, and it will ask you if you want to apply. You'll give it a name, DES 104 week 3, and then your name. Week 3, this is Woodland. Okay, so hit save, and okay. So now he's dragged into this new file that I created. Now what I want to do is go grab my curtain. I had a curtain photo that I downloaded, and let me see if I can find the original here that I can drag into Photoshop real quick. Kind of show you how I did it. Okay, so this background is a lot wider than my actual page. What I was going to demo and show you was kind of how to use the marquee tool. So we're going to bring, what the idea is that we want to bring this image into our main document. And so I'm going to use my marquee tool to make the selection. So I'm going to go to my rectangle marquee tool, and I'm just going to click the selection that I want to bring in with this. And then I'm going to drag it into my blank document. I'm going to bring this out here so that we can see. There's my, oops, so many files. Sorry, guys. Go to my, there we go. Here's my original. I'll zoom in so we can see it. All right, and then I've got my marquee tool. I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm going to drag it into my new file. All right, so again, it's quite a bit larger, so I'm going to zoom out, go to Edit, Free Transform, hold down Shift, and I'm just going to kind of click and drag. Now, have you guys, it can be any background. It's up to you. You're just graded on whether or not you included a background. Okay, you can kind of position the curtains or wherever you want this to be. Hold down Shift, kind of make sure it extends over the edges, hit Save, and then it'll ask if you want to apply it. Now, just like layers of an onion, you want to make sure that your layers are in order of the way you want to view them. So you want the layer that's on the outside to be at the top. So I'm going to bring my little squirrel on top of my red curtain. He's going to be a little performing squirrel. So now you can see that the tail is not quite as clean as I want it to be now that it's on this background. So there's a few tools you can use. One is called the burn tool, and one is called the dodge tool. And you can see that the symbols are a little different. It's kind of halfway down your toolbar. The dodge tool here kind of will help lighten things up. The burn tool will help darken things up. So you can adjust your exposure if you want to get a different effect. Whoops. But you want to make sure you're on the layer mask before you go and do it. So the dodge tool, I'm sorry, the burn tool will kind of help clean up those edges. I'm going to go in. It kind of helps almost create some shadow and cleans up the edges along that really dark, bright background. Kind of looks a little cleaner. I can even use the dodge tool. The dodge tool will kind of restore it. It kind of adds the light back in. All right, so he's a lot cleaner. It looks nice. The edges are clean. And I've got my background, I've got my squirrel, and now I need to add some kind of a prop like a hat. So, and Rachel, to answer your question, it could be any background that you want. So it's just kind of whatever you want your composition to look like. It's a great question. This project will offer you a lot of freedom as far as creativity. I'm just showing you the tools that you're going to need to use to cut something out, to create a layer mask in a non-destructive way. These are non-destructive techniques to help you so that you always have your original photo and everything is unharmed. So next I'm going to grab my hat. I'm going to put it into Photoshop. I found this hat earlier. Which tool placed the squirrel? Good question. So your move tool, once you have had your squirrel, you're going to go to your move tool, click and drag it into a new file. So, would you like to share your screen? And I can kind of step you through it.
I actually have the Zoom on on my tablet, and then I have my Mac with the Photoshop.
Oh, so. Okay, no problem. Let me see if I can step back. I think I closed out of the squirrel file. Same concept here, though. I'll show you with the hat. Once I cut it out, I'll show you how to move it over. Did you create your layer mask?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I've got my animal and I've got him cropped out and all cleaned up, and then I've got my background, and I just need to figure out how to place the two together.
Okay, so you've got, so you'll need a new file that you'll create, and you need your original photo here. So I'll do this really quick and dirty. I'm just gonna grab the paintbrush, make sure my foreground's set to black. I'm gonna hit Q on my keyboard. My layer will turn red. That's how you know you're in the right mode. And I'm going to adjust my brush size so I can color this guy quickly. I'm just gonna select him really fast to show you the steps. So once you have your object colored in, obviously don't do this right now, it's not very quality. Then you're gonna hit Q again to turn off that tool. Are you at this point?
Yes, I've done this.
You've done this.
I've got my transparent background around him.
Inverted it, okay.
And I've got the edges cleaned up, and then.
So are you at this point?
Right.
Okay, so simple. You just grab your move tool, which is the top tool on your toolbar, that cross-looking thing. You'll click it, and then you'll just click and drag it into the file that you have set up. So wherever your file is, click and drag. It'll ask you these colors, do they match? You'll hit OK, and then he's now in your file. So you basically click and drag it into the new file that you have set up. Does that help answer the question?
I got it.
Okay, cool. And once he gets pulled in, he might be much bigger than the actual file size that you have. So then you'll just go to Free Transform, and then you'll see your anchor points. Hold on to a corner anchor point and hold Shift as you resize it. And then once you're done resizing it, you can place the animal wherever you want.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Got it? Hey, no problem. That's a good question. Sorry, we move kind of fast here. It's a lot of steps to kind of keep track of. Let me see. Don't apply. Okay. We'll get rid of that layer because we don't need that guy anymore. All right. Any other questions? That's a good question. We want to make sure once you have them cut out, you've got the layer mask applied, it's just a matter of dragging that layer mask. Make sure you drag the layer mask and not the actual image into the background. Just wanted to emphasize that. And you'll know that your layer mask is selected when you see these white brackets around it. Okay, so now we're going to learn how to use another selection tool, which is the pen tool. And I don't know if you guys have used the pen tool before. If you take any other design editing classes, you're going to use the pen tool in other software like like Illustrator or InDesign. So it's a good tool to master. It's actually the hardest tool to master, so don't get frustrated with yourself. Even now, I still haven't quite mastered the pen tool, and I've been doing this for several years. Let me grab the pen tool. Let's see, where is it hiding? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So the pen tool is ideal to use when you have any edges that curve, and when it's on a clean background like this. When you've got a really dark element on a light background, this is a really ideal way to use the pen tool. All right, so I'm going to take this hat and make a selection. I'm going to use the pen tool, which is, like I said, perfect for objects that have straight edges and smooth curves. And it's okay if we don't get it exactly. It doesn't have to be perfect, because again, we can clean it up with the brush tool. Just use the anchor points to reshape your line. What I mean by that is you'll click one anchor point and you'll move in small segments at a time. Now, I clicked once. I'm going to click and hold it, and you'll know that it creates this like Bezier curve. And just by rotating your anchor point, you can get a very distinct curve on it. So you really want to match that curve up with the curve of the hat. You'll want to make sure your fill is turned off up here. You just click that and make sure it's turned off. Now, wherever you click, it will select. So again, you just kind of click and drag until you get the curve ideally where you want it to go. You'll notice that sometimes the curve is going in a direction that you don't want it to go in, and you can adjust that by by holding down Alt Option and moving these little anchor points to the direction of the curve that you want to make. I know that sounds confusing. Just make sure they're pointing in the direction that you want to go. So right now, this particular anchor point is pointing into the hat, and I want to move it to the outside of the hat so I can get more of a curve on the outside. I'm clicking and dragging until I get the curve exactly where I want it to go. And I'm just doing small segments of this hat at a time. I'm going to hold down Alt Option. Notice how my mouse changes to this little upside down V. I'm going to move it back into the direction that I want it to go. And come back to your original anchor point. Okay, now I'm going to hit Q on my keyboard. I'm going to hit the layer mask. Oops. Hold on, back up for just a minute. Didn't look like it registered. See, again, it can be very temperamental, so I want to make sure that. There we go. All right. Q. See, why is it not doing it? Let's try it again. I'll do a quick cutout. Might take a try or two to get it just right. But what I failed to do was connect the original anchor point. It kind of makes you start over, which is a little annoying. All right, so once you have that, you can make your selection. You could also use the quick selection tool on it if you wanted to. That's okay. And then another technique you can use is your marquee tool. If you have a white background, this could be ideal. You can grab your elliptical marquee and kind of click and drag that selection, just like that. You won't be able to move it, so you will need to make sure you get kind of close to those edges that you want. But once you've done that, again, grab your move tool, hit Q, Shift Command I will invert it. You can click your layer mask. Okay. All right, so have you guys used the pen tool before? All right, also one thing you want to do is make sure it's on the path mode. Otherwise it won't give you the effect that you're looking for. And once it's on the path mode, oops. Q, Command I will invert it. And there you go. So now you've kind of got your shape. Oh, that was from the marquee tool. Let me hide that real quick. Delete. All right, so have you guys been practicing the pen tool? Have you been trying to apply it? So just move the little anchor points into the direction that you want the next selection to go. This takes some practice, kind of clicking and dragging, just like this. You see a question, so I will Move this down. Move this up. You're still selecting around your hat. That's fine. No problem. Practice it. It will take a little bit of practice. Let's see. You just want to make sure that you're on the path mode when you're making a selection with the pen tool, and you shouldn't be on the shape mode. So you'll know when you click your pen tool at the top here, you want it to say path. Okay. And then you'll click make selection. Oops. That's all. Yep. Make selection is on. And then you'll just click on mask. And then you can use the rectangle marquee tool to select your image, or the circular or the ellipse and marquee tool. You can just drag it over into your document if you have an edge. And if you have an edge of imperfection, you can clean it up later. Yeah, just make sure the pen tool settings are on path, and then make is on selection. Or you can kind of grab it with your marquee selection tool and kind of click and drag it. Delete these. Oh, we're almost need to go to break. So I will let you guys practice the pen tool. We're going to go to our 12-minute break. I'm going to give you that link too if you wanted to check out the channel mixer. You grab it real quick, and then we'll come back and play along. 12-minute break, 12-minute video, or you can work on your assignment and kind of find some other photos. Go ahead and find another prop that you want to use for your image, and we'll go learn about another tool as well. Any questions before we leave for break? If not, we'll just go ahead and move forward. Can you guys see my whiteboard? Let's see, try it again. There we are. All right, guys, we'll see you in 12 minutes. All right, so how are we doing? Ready to jump back into it?
Yeah, I'm at the spot where I've got the hat selected and I don't know what to do next.
Sure, no problem. So I neglected to show you this step, so I do apologize. So with the pen tool, when it's selected and you've made your selection, you just go at the top to, let's see, what do we do? Make sure it's on path, and then just make sure that with the pen tool, I think I already did it, but it will give you an option to click a selection, mask. If you click mask, it will create a layer mask for you.
Okay, then I may have done something wrong. The only selections that I have is layer and group.
Layer and group. Okay, let's see. Let me back up. Let's see real quick, or I can look at your screen real quick. 1 second. Can you see my Photoshop? Okay. Okay, so this is kind of where I was at with the pen tool. And then just make sure pen tool selected, and you'll click on mask. Does it give you that option when you have the pen tool selected? See at the top there? It says mask. You'll click that and it will cut it out for you.
Okay, I got it.
Do you see that?
I do.
Okay, so clicking that, I forgot to show you that step before we went to break, and you might want to know that. You can also, in this mode, in the mask mode, adjust your Bezier curves here. If you want to kind of get a little close, make sure the edge is a little bit closer, adjust the curves a little bit more. This hat looks a little cut off here on this side, so I'm going to hold down my Alt Option button, and again, my mouse will change a little bit, but this will allow me to, oops, kind of bring out those edges a little bit, kind of fix the curve on my hat. And with that selected, you can just hit copy and paste, or you can grab your move tool with the layer selected and just click and drag it into your file like we did before. Whoops. Let me go back. I have a million files open. I apologize. Let's go back to that hat. I'll pull it out so you can see. And I'll click and drag it into my document. It'll give me that notice again. I'll say okay. Again, it's going to be much larger than what I've got set up. So I'm just going to go to File, Edit, Free Transform, and hold down Shift as I resize this hat. And of course, it's going to be super tiny because it's going on top of my cute little squirrel. And I'll zoom in. Remember, Command plus, Command minus will zoom in and out for you. Were you able to get that to work with the hat?
I did, but how is it that you make it smaller?
So once you drag it into your file, you'll just hold, you go to Edit, Free Transform, and then you hold down Shift as you click and resize. That'll constrain the proportions a little bit.
Gotcha.
That work?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I can position this hat. I can do a few things with this hat if I wanted to. What I could do is I can also what's called warp. If I go to Edit, Transform, I can use Perspective or Warp to give me a little bit more of a natural bend to the picture. So by moving these little anchor points, I can kind of get some interesting curvature on it. Doesn't look quite so copy and pasted. I can kind of give it more like an Alice in Wonderland feel here. I mess with the warp. Now I don't want to skew it too terribly much, but I do want to kind of add some kind of dimension. So that's an option too. In this case, I don't really need to do it. So I think I'll just undo the I'm going to hit don't apply, but that's also an option you can do. Whoops, what is it? Totally, let me start over. Let me drag it in. All right, so any other questions as you guys are dragging and dropping your images? Anyway, that was the warp tool. Let's go look at the perspective tool and see what that does. If you go to edit, transform, perspective, and this gives it a little bit, this is kind of what I want. This kind of gives it a little bit more depth. You can mess with the perspective of it a little bit, the direction that it faces, so it doesn't look so one-dimensional. Okay. And I can kind of set it like that. I can also, I'll hit apply. I can also go to edit, transform, and I can rotate it. Notice how my mouse icon changes to this curved arrow when I hover over a corner anchor point. If you click and drag, you'll be able to rotate the object. So by adding a little bit of perspective to it, I'm able to, and in rotating it, I'm able to kind of give it a little bit of character. I'm going to zoom in here. If you'll notice, there's a white edge still on my hat. I'm going to make sure my selection or my mask is selected. I'm going to grab my paintbrush with black in the foreground, and I need to decrease my brush quite a bit. Whoops, go down here. And you can use the, oops, that's not what I want. There we go. You can use the eraser tool on your mask only, not on the image. And I just even want it a bit smaller. Kind of go in there. Another thing you can do if you don't want to use the eraser tool, because I don't kind of like getting in that habit of using it, you can use those tools we used before, the dodge and burn tool. The burn tool is the one that I'll probably use because it'll kind of burn the edges of that hat, kind of darken them a little bit so I don't have that white stark background. It kind of gives it some edge to it. And I'll do that just to darken the edges a little bit. All right, perfect. So now I can zoom out of that, and that guy looks good. He's got his little hat on and pretty happy camper. Another object I thought to bring in was a cane. So I found a candy cane. Let me see, where'd that assignment go? I wonder if I closed out of it. I probably did. That's okay. So I cut out a candy cane the same way, and I put it in his hands, and that was kind of my composition. Let me see if I can find that candy cane, and then we'll go into the next demo really quick because I want to make sure we have time for it. 1 second. So I found a candy cane, bring it in Photoshop. And I liked this candy cane because it was kind of tapered. It looked fatter at the bottom than it did at the top, and that's what I want because his hands are 2 different sizes. He has one hand that's in focus and one that's not, and they look like they're 2 different sizes. So that was my thought process with this. So again, what we're going to do is go into our quick selection mode. Another selection tool you can use is the magnetic lasso tool. And what this will do is, like we learned, it will just kind of, as you click once and then you just move your mouse along the edge, and it kind of grabs and locks into place, but it is kind of temperamental, so you just have to go very slow. But I'm not clicking anything. I clicked once and then I just started moving my mouse, and you'll notice how it's starting to add these anchor points as I'm tracing around this candy cane. So the magnetic lasso tool is really helpful if you're trying to, if something has a very clean edge, you can definitely use this tool for it as well. It's almost like a pen tool, but if it does not have a clean edge, it won't really grab very in a clean way. Now, if you wanted to stop the trace, you can kind of just click it until you get all around. You'll hit Q. Whoops. Command I will invert it, or if you want that candy cane selected, you can grab your move tool. And oh, before I grab my move tool, what I want to do Make sure that just the candy cane is selected. What I want to do is create a mask of just that candy cane. So I just clicked the layer mask icon. All right. Now it'll allow me to kind of clean it up. So by using my paintbrush, if I use black, it'll erase the edges, so to speak. If I use white in the foreground, it will repaint those edges. In this case, I kind of want to go in and repaint because it didn't do a very clean job. Again, the magnetic lasso tool is only handy if you're using something with a straight edge, a very clean edge. It's very distinct. Otherwise, it'll get a little messy. Okay, I just want to make sure it's have all these uneven curves to them. I want it to be very smooth. All right, now I'm going to go back. I'm going to shift to black, still on my paintbrush mode here. And I'm kind of just painting, erasing, if you will, in a non-destructive way. Again, I don't like using the eraser tool or teaching how to use it because it's so tempting, but it's very destructive and it doesn't preserve your original image. Because if we decided we didn't want this cutout after all I have to do is delete the mask and we have our original photo totally untouched, which is a really cool thing. Because I don't know how many times, I don't know about you, but I never get something right the first time. So it's helpful to have my original preserved so I can go back and make changes to it later. All right, so I'm just kind of coloring it in. So obviously I spend more time on this to make it cleaner, but now I can take this candy cane and I can drag it into my composition. I tried looking for a cane, but they didn't have one that was free, so I had to improvise. So we're going to use a candy cane. Drag it in again, same step, free transform, zoom out, command minus, hold down shift as you resize, and then I'm going to bring this in here. Now he's holding that peanut, and I might want to get rid of that peanut, so I'm just going to hide this candy cane layer for just a minute. I'm going to hide it because I will need to work with this peanut thing for a minute. So I'm going to click on the mask, the layer mask of the squirrel. I need to go in and I need to clean this up. I'm going to grab my brush tool, and black will erase. So I'm just going to go in. Black is the foreground and kind of erase this peanut he's holding. Try to get in as close as I can. You really want to make sure you do a quality job on this. Okay. I erased a little too much of his hand on the left, so I'm going to grab my paintbrush and just kind of paint this in. See, that's the beauty of it. If you erase too much, you can even come back and fix it later. Okay, so now I'm equipped to bring in my candy cane. Zoom out here. I need to rotate it, so I'm just going to do free transform. What's neat about free transform is that it kind of allows you to do a little bit of everything. So I can rotate, whoops, I'm on the wrong, to make sure you're on the right layer. What's nice about free transform is it allows you to edit transform it in multiple ways off of one setting. So I can rotate it, I can shrink it up and down, lots of different things. So I'm going to kind of have him hold this candy cane in such a way. I don't want it to look too overpowering, too big. I can even rotate the squirrel itself. Hit apply. I'm going to hold down the hat and the squirrel, and I'm going to go to free transform. I'm going to try to rotate them too, so he's holding that candy cane at the right angle. And again, I want that fat side in his hand. I'll bring it in like that. Hit apply. And now what I need to do is I'm going to adjust the opacity on this layer so that I can see his hands through the candy cane. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to grab my paintbrush tool. And I'm going to just go and erase the part that needs to be over the candy cane. So I'm just kind of erasing that candy cane a little bit, making sure his paw shows up. Again, I'm going to do the other side. I might need to shrink my brush a little bit. It looks like he's grabbing onto that candy cane. All right, and then I can bring that opacity back to 100. It kind of looks like he's holding it. All right, so that is essentially the composition. Now, what's nice about having your layers in pieces is you can go and adjust the hue and saturation. You can make some color adjustments as well. And there's a few ways to do this. So now you can, for a background color, if you wanted to change the background color, just click on your background layer. And then down here, it's almost kind of like the eclipse icon. Like we saw today, there's a little icon here. If you click this, it gives you some options of color changing. One that is very fun to play with is hue and saturation. And when you do that, it shows up here at the top. You've got these color bars, and you've got this, this slide that you can adjust. My mouse is sticking. Hold on one second. So I can start moving the bar, and what it will do is it will change the color of my background. So I can use a really cool hot red, or I can do whatever. So I think in this case we'll use a blue. We'll do blue curtains. And then if I wanted to change the color of the hat, what I could do different blending modes. You could play with the blending modes and see if it does anything for you. Or you can go in and adjust the hue and saturation as well. Now, you would probably say to yourself, oh, okay, I'm just going to go and adjust the hue and saturation. Well, what happens is it starts applying it to the background and other elements, and that's not what we want. So what we want to do is make sure that we hold down. You click at the bottom of your hue and saturation, the line between the hue and saturation layer and your layer 3, or the hat layer. Hold down Alt Option, and then your arrow kind of changes, and click that line right there. Now this will allow you to adjust the color in your hat. And it's kind of hard to see because there's not a lot of color in it. Well, if there's something. Let me see what I can do to give it some, I want to colorize it. There we go. I can give him a different color hat if I wanted. Do a brown hat, that's fine. Or a red hat. Matches candy cane. There you go. So that's what allows me to change the specific objects that I'm working with instead of the entire document as a whole. If I want to change the hue and saturation, your Alt Option button will help you do that. Are there any questions at this point on how to do this part of the work? Okay, so that is how to do a very basic composition. We've got a few elements. We've got our object, our hat, we've got the animal, a background, and then he's holding and interacting with something, which is that candy cane. Now, if we wanted to go in and kind of make it a little bit more intermediate, here's another example that was demoed by a previous instructor. And what's cool about this is you can see the different stages. She used all of the same tools that we did, just a different effect, kind of give you some ideas. So she started out with a basic stage, kind of like we did. She added a bunny and then gave it a shadow. She edited that grass out of there. She gave the bunny a hat and even kind of did the same thing I did with the candy cane and the paws of the squirrel. She kind of had the ears coming through the hat. I thought that was kind of cool. All you have to do is adjust your opacity on the hat to lower the opacity so you can see the layer behind it, and then kind of use your brush tool to erase, to kind of trace out those ears. Adding some hue and saturation changed the color of the hat like we did. And then she added a little suitcase, a little box, maybe his performing box, gave it a color, and then adjusted the photo filter. This is kind of a neat trick. And then gave it some some dimension on the outside. So let me show you in another tutorial how you can apply these effects. I did a sort of a King of the Jungle composition here, and it looks a little bit more complex than it really is. Again, I just added a few photos to make this look legit. So let me show you how we did this. I'm going to, let me click out of this. I'm not going to save this. I'll hide these. You can see what I started with. So I found this photo of Napoleon. Now, you can't take Google Images, but I'm just showing you this as just kind of a demo. You could probably find someone sitting on a throne as well if you wanted to do something like this. But I found a photo of Napoleon. And so what I'm going to do is pull that into my Photoshop. Okay, here he is. All right, I'll unlock that background layer. Now, before I begin, were there any questions about what we did previously? I'm going to kind of click out of these other layers. What I'm going to do it pretty quickly, but I'm just going to, because for sake of time, we don't have a ton of time, but I'm going to show you exactly how I got the final result. All right, so first thing, you want to open your background image or create a new document. And first things first, you can choose to crop it. There's a tool, a crop tool, that's about 4 tools down from your move tool, or the C on the keyboard will pull it up. And the crop tool just kind of allows you to crop it, kind of like on your phone when you're editing things on your camera. You can hit crop and then it will allow you to crop it. So what I'm going to do is kind of crop out this bottom portion here. Command S will save it, and it will ask you if you want to crop. You hit yes. You'll give it a name. And okay. And the next thing I found was a lion's head. Okay, and so I'm going to bring that lion's head into the file. I'm going to pull this into Photoshop. So I'm no longer going to be cropping. I don't want to crop. I need to use the techniques that we learned today and cut this lion out. So after you import the image, male lion, you're going to, this time I'm going to use the quick selection tool. So, or I'm sorry, the quick mask tool. So I'll hit Q on my keyboard. That activates the quick mask tool. And you'll know that when the layer turns red. I'm going to grab my paintbrush tool. Make sure opacity is set to 100 and the mode is set to normal. You'll increase the size of your brush. You can use the open and close brackets to kind of toggle, or you can just manually do it. And I'm just going to go in here and try to get as close to this as possible. I'm only going to get part of his mane. There we go. Get his face, color it all in, make sure I get everything. All right. And then what I'm going to do is hit Q again, and that tells the Photoshop that I'm done with my selection. I'm going to hit Command I to invert the selection, and then I'm going to hit Layer Mask. And so you'll know that your layer mask was created when you see this this black and white replica on the right hand side of your image. Now you can see I missed some spots, so what I'm going to do is stay on my brush tool and make sure that white is still in the foreground, and I can kind of color in the parts that I may have missed. Just kind of like this. And I've got him. What's so cool about this technique is it preserves your original photo. You can see the photo has been untouched on the left hand side, and so it's just really cool that you'll always have that original photo, and it's just such a neat way to go about it. So now that I have my layer selected, make sure my clipping mask is selected, and then go to my new document. I'm going to drag this layer, or the lion, right into it. And you'll notice right away, because he's on a black background, that there's a white halo around him. I'm going to want to go clean that up using the tools that we just learned. So I'm going to shrink his head down quite a bit. I want this to be a good size, so I'll put him right here. I want his head to be proportionate with his body. That's really important too. You want to make sure that you're working with proportions well. Oops. And even using the warp tool can allow me to change the direction that he faces, but I don't need to do that. So I'm just going to shrink him down a little bit. Hit Command S, we'll apply it. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to grab the paintbrush tool with my layer mask selected. I'm going to shrink down the size of the brush, and I want the black to be in the foreground so it kind of cleans it up and erases it a little bit. I'm going to kind of go in here and clean it up the best I can. I don't want to erase it to the point where it doesn't look natural, but it's just that, whoops, it's just that little white halo. Now, if you mess up, you can just hit Command Z. I'm going to start working with my burn tool. My burn tool will darken the light edges, kind of make it a little bit more realistic. I'm going to kind of go in there and clean it up. I could spend a lot of time on this cleaning it up, and I really want you to spend a lot of time on it, making it look nice too. But for sake of time, I'm just going to kind of rush through this so that you can see these different effects that I'm using. Kind of cleaning up the inside of that white portion there. I don't want to see any white. Okay. Zoom out. He looks pretty good. Okay. Don't forget to save your work. Now that his head has been placed, there's another thing I can do. If I go to my original layer, under your filter drop-down menu up at the top here, there's an option called Liquify. And if you click on Liquify, it'll bring up the layer that you want to adjust, and you'll go to your bloat tool. Bloat tool is B on your keyboard. And what's cool about this is you can adjust the brush size of your bloat tool, and you can click on an element, and it kind of makes it look bigger. So what I'm doing is, because he's a lion and Napoleon is really scrawny, I am going in and kind of bloating, I guess, his legs to make them look like they're bulging a little bit more. You got to be careful when you use it, because if for instance, I need to use it on his arms, but I don't want to use it too much where it distorts the staff that he's holding. So I might need to shrink my brush down, my brush down just a little bit. Kind of make his arms look a little thicker and bigger, because after all, he's a lion. I want to give him some biceps. Like that. Just kind of the features that will stick out. You're going to want to make them just a little larger. So that's kind of a cool tool to use, kind of beef him up a little bit. I'll hit OK, and you can notice the changes were made. A little buffer than he was before. He needs kind of a jungle background though. So what I'm going to do is, for my background, I'm going to grab a jungle background that I had. And I'm going to just drag and pull it into, you can click and drag into Photoshop's icon on your Mac, or you can just go to File, Open, and find your picture there. I'm going to unlock the layer. And in this case, I'm just going to kind of drag it into the file. There's not a whole lot that I need to do to it before I drag it in. And I'm going to position it right here, or just kind of find the area that I want to. I like those palm trees on the top though, so I think I'll just place it right there. And what I'm going to do is change the opacity on it and zoom in, because what I want to do is clean it up a little bit. I want only the parts to show on the back. So what I'm going to do is grab my quick selection tool, or hit Q, and I'm going to grab my marquee tool, and I only want this part selected. I only need like half of the picture selected. And now I'm going to hit Q again, Oops. Do a layer mask. There we go. And kind of cut off most of it. And now I'm going to grab my paint brush with black selected, or black selected. I'm just going to go in and kind of clean up all the areas that I don't want it to overlap on. So like his staff, his arms, I only want the background to show. I'll increase the opacity a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going in and cleaning up because I want him in the foreground. So by using my brush tool, I'm able to clean things up a little bit. Are there any questions as I'm doing this? Anything come to mind? Are you getting stuck on your project? How are things coming for you? You guys getting some ideas? Hopefully this tutorial gives you some ideas of where to start, because sometimes it can be overwhelming when you're like, what am I supposed to do with 4 photos? Where do I even start? That's always a hard place. Cool. I'm glad that you're already done with yours. That's awesome. All right, so I'm just gonna increase the brush size so I can erase even more of him. I don't want that background anywhere on him. Increasing the opacity will allow you to see those pieces that you need to clean up. But I kind of traced as best I could. Again, this is very quick and dirty, and I'm going very fast just so that we have time to go in and kind of clean up the edges here. But now that I have the background erased, or I have the image where I want it to be, I can go in and I can adjust the blending mode. I can kind of play with it and see what would look best. I was doing this earlier, and I really honestly don't know which one I had before. Just kind of play with it and see what would look best. I like this pin light, and I'm going to lower the opacity on it because I just want it in the background. I don't really want it. I'm going to use my dodge tool and kind of add back some of this photo over here. I don't want that background to be really stark. I just kind of want it to be in the background, basically. All right, now I'll zoom out. You can kind of see I've got a jungle background there. I want to highlight his chair. So with the pen tool, I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to create a shape with my pen tool. And I'll click on my pen tool, make sure that path is selected, or shape is selected. And I can go in and kind of trace the curvature of this. Make sure that fill is turned off so it doesn't mess you up. And I'm just going to go click around the top edge of this throne here. Hold down Alt-Option to get that anchor point where you want it to go in the right direction. We're kind of repositioning it. All right, so with that, I'm going to give it a little color. And I'm going to go to my blending modes. And I like multiply, so that's where I'm going to keep it. Let's see if there's any other cool effect. I could do the color dodge, it's kind of cool. So I'll stick with multiply. It's a subtle color. I can also grab with my pen tool and kind of adjust the anchor points to cover more area. All right, cool. Now I'm going to put him behind this layer behind the lion's head. And I'm going to grab my burn tool. Oops. Delete. And I can go in, kind of clean it up, give it some dimension. I'll grab my paintbrush tool, or I'm sorry, my eraser tool. I want to kind of clean it off that staff there. Okay, so now I've got that chair highlighted. Another cool thing I did was I pulled in a little skull from, I found 2 different skulls, and one was kind of a cow skull like this. And by using your quick selection tool, I don't think we've gone over this one, you can increase the brush size of your quick selection tool and just kind of click and drag areas. This is especially nice if you have a very stark difference between the color of the background and the color of the image itself, and if you have a white background. So those things working together, you just kind of have to click and drag. You're kind of highlighting. You only want the parts, only the parts that you want to select need to be highlighted. So for these eyes, for instance, this white part of his eye is not selected, but if I hold down Alt Option, it gives me a minus, and it will allow me to deselect that white part because I don't want that to carry over in my image. So I just kind of clicked in there and it automatically filled in the space. So that's kind of nice. Now that I have that, I can hit my layer mask, and I can click and drag this right into my composition. I'm just going to click and drag and bring it in. Obviously, this needs to be much, much smaller. So we'll go back to our free transform, hold down Shift, and resize. It's got to be super tiny. And I'm going to position it right here underneath his cloak, his robe, I guess. Right here. And I want his robe to kind of drape over it. Maybe I'll do that with the other one. So I'll put it right here on this pedestal. I'll hit save and apply. And I can grab the burn tool and kind of darken the edges a little bit. See how that works? It looks a little bit better so it doesn't look so copy and pasted. That burn tool kind of burns those edges a little bit, and I like that. It gives it a shadow too. Another thing that you can do is if you grab your pen tool, you can create another shape, or even your paintbrush tool. If you go to your original layer and then grab your paintbrush tool. Oh, whoops. Let's see, what tool do I want? I can grab my paintbrush tool. With black selected, I'm just going to paint a shadow. Let's see. Like this. Kind of in the direction that his head would be. And then I'm going to change the opacity. Whoops. Before you do that, I'm going to create a new layer so we don't. There we go. Now you can kind of color in some shadowing. Kind of in the direction that the light would hit anyways. So it's almost like his mane's casting a shadow. All right, and then I grabbed one more skull to add to this. And this will conclude our tutorial. Again, you can use a myriad of different tools. I find that the quick selection tool is nice when you have a white background. Just click and drag and highlight what you want. Hold down Alt Option to subtract any section that you don't want. Okay. Drag it in. Sorry, my mouse is giving me some trouble. It's sticking. Okay, here we go. Grab our remove tool and before we do that, I got ahead of myself. Let's go back to that. Click out of this. Click out of this. Here we go. Don't forget to create a layer mask. There we go. Now you can go in and clean up the edges. That is crucial, the layer mask. Don't be so in a hurry like me. Okay, drag it into the file. We're gonna edit, free transform, Command minus will zoom out. Get nice and small. This is a cool effect. This will be the last effect that I do. Put it under, I wanna position it under his robe. So I'm just gonna make this nice and small, so it's kind of like he's sitting right here, like that. And move it up, and it hits apply, Command S. And then I'm gonna click on that layer mask, and I'm gonna click on the opacity, and I'm gonna lighten the opacity so that I can see where that robe drapes over the mask. So I'm gonna grab my paintbrush tool, I'm gonna decrease the size with black in the foreground. It's just gonna slightly erase. I want the opacity set to 100. Just erase where that robe drapes over. So it kind of gives it an effect like that. Now increase the opacity. And if you erased too much, you can go in and kind of highlight it. Then you can use your burn tool to kind of darken the edges that you want to clean up. Just like that. So that's essentially the composition. Any questions about the tools that we used, how we got this effect? Another thing that I can go and do with this really bright background, I can click on my background layer and I can click on my hue and saturation, and I can give it a little starker color, a little brighter color, so it almost matches a little bit more the background. I don't want to change the color. I just want to kind of heighten the colors a little bit so that it's not the only thing that's dull in the picture. Like that. Okay. And there you have it. You have your composition. The only thing I didn't do was show you how to put the crown on him, but you can kind of use your imagination. I just used the quick selection tool. Kind of inverted the crown a little bit and went in here. Kind of grabbing all the pieces that I would need, make sure edges and such. Okay, and then I just hit Command minus, or Command Shift Command I to invert the selection. Clipping mask, and there you go. And now when I have this is kind of a messy job because I'll have to go clean it up. So I'll grab my paintbrush tool, and with black in the foreground, I can go and kind of clean up the edges a little bit. And I'm not using the eraser tool, I am using the paintbrush in conjunction with the quick mask tool. So this is really a great way to kind of preserve the image. Okay, looks good enough for now. Now I'm going to drag it in and give him a crown, and then once he is crowned king, that'll be it on this tutorial. We'll click and drag it in. Again, I'm sure you guys will do a much more quality job than I'm doing right now. Zoom out a little bit. Edit, free transform. Kind of make it small. Crown that guy. And then I'm going to go to transform and perspective. And this will allow me to kind of give the crown a different shape. Kind of like that. A little bit more dramatic look to the crown. And there you go. So any questions? That is it on the tutorial. I think we've hit just about every selection and mask tool that you'll need for this assignment, but I've also posted the video in the chat box. I will post it in announcements so that you have the shorter condensed version on how to do this assignment. It's also a lot simpler too. But hopefully this gave you a few ideas of how you could, you know, do you want to go this route or do you want to get a little bit more complex? But with that said, all of the tools were the same. So it just depends on what kind of a look that you want to go for. All right, if there are no questions, we'll go ahead and end here. And we will see you guys on Thursday for the multi-session. Thanks for sticking with me. We'll see you guys later.